But I'm Mike Wilbon. The Timberwolves have made it to another day.
And so has Phil and Frank.
Oh,
That's
wow.
actually bigger news. That's bigger news.
How about
then.
that? Tony has another day off, so I am joined once again by our great friend, Mr. Phil and Frank Isola.
That's my friend. Those are my friends.
Little holiday hangover cheer. Let's start with the Minnesota Timberwolves avoiding elimination by beating the Mavericks in Dallas last night. Karl Anthony Towns bounced back following a dreadful Game 3, and Anthony Edwards nearly had a triple-double and hit some crucial shots down the stretch as the Wolves won by 5. On the Mavericks side, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving both took responsibility for the loss. Frank, are you looking at this win as a one-off or something more?
No, I think it's something more because the next game is going to be in Minnesota. If they could somehow win in Dallas, they would get a Game 7 at home. I know that's a long way away. The good news is, number one, we have basketball for the rest of the week. We're going to get a game tomorrow night. You and I sat here yesterday and we talked about Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, and they delivered. They combined for 54 points in the first 3 games. They were combining to average 37. So they delivered when they needed to. But I'm going to put a lot of this on Karl Anthony Towns. He came in shooting 3 for 22 on threes, and then when Kyrie hit that shot to put Dallas up 90-89, Karl Anthony Towns about a 3-minute stretch hit 3 3-pointers. That was massive. When he needed to finally do something, he did, and your guy Anthony Edwards was outstanding. And a little thing that Chris Finch did, he put Anthony Edwards on Luka, and as the primary defender, Anthony Edwards, Luka was 5 for 15. So Anthony Edwards got it done on both ends of the court.
Yeah, he did, Frank, and that credit should go to Anthony Edwards and to Finch for making an adjustment. I know I was critical a couple of days ago for adjustments I think went lacking. But your bigger point is the point of that game is Karl Anthony Towns. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going nowhere without Karl Anthony Towns. They haven't gone anywhere without him. They got to this point because he's been such a critical part of what that team does. And, yes, I see this as something more potentially as well. These games are so close. It's not like, Dallas was out there. Yes, they were superior in the clutch time, in the final 5 minutes of all these games so far, the first 3 games. But the games were even. And Minnesota should feel, given that it wound up essentially at the top of the Western Conference, along with Denver and Oklahoma City in the regular season, they ought to feel they can be in it with anyone. And they should be able to get a game in this series and force it back to Minneapolis, which they've now done. But, yes, Karl Anthony Towns, the threes, first of all, and whoever helped build him back, whether it's his claim about shooting 1,500 shots a day, that seems a little high to me, or the people who rallied him. It was great watching games with Chris Paul during these conference finals, who's been working for the network. And Chris, of course, has been around the league a million years. And he talks about all the time, it's not just the stars who are picking up the younger players. Who's the veteran in the room who helps pick up a star after he's had a bad game or 2 was in a bad stretch? It's a brilliant point. Somebody or somebodies, and I suspect Ant-Man was involved, did that with Karl Anthony Towns. Good for the Timberwolves. I am glad, like you, we have more basketball this week.
And, you wonder, too, how much the impact of losing Derek Lively could affect the Dallas Mavericks. Their bench players combined for 3 rebounds last night. That's simply not enough. And here's the thing, too, about Minnesota, because we know the record, Mike. It's 155-0 for teams that have gone up 3-0 in a series. They've never lost. At some point, it's going to happen. Minnesota's knocked off, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Phoenix, and look what they did in the next round. They had to go on the road down 20 in the third quarter and came back and won. So if any team is kind of, has that mojo about them, maybe to be Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. The big thing is you finally got a game that you needed from Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. They were huge last night.
I'm rooting for drama.
Yeah, well, let's get one more win out of them. All right, let's move to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the Panthers evening up their series with the Rangers at 2 games apiece. Sam Reinhart scored on a power play in overtime to give Florida the 3-2 home win. The Panthers have been dominating the Rangers in shot attempts, Mike. Does it feel to you like this series is even?
It does, Frank, because I know of the shot attempt statistics. They're insane. You know,
They
we're
are.
not talking again about shots on goal, even though there's an imbalance there. We're talking about just shots. I mean, the Panthers are generating so much more offense than the Rangers are. You look at this and you say, wait a minute, how is this series even? Overtimes. There's nothing like NHL Stanley Cup playoff overtimes. And they tell you more than any other statistical measure how even two teams are. And games 2, 3, and 4, Frank, have gone to OT. Yes, the series is as even as it can be. Now, that's going to probably, not necessarily, be up to the Rangers, you know, to figure out how to manufacture some more offense. And Laviolette and his staff and his veteran players are going to have to do that. But yes, I see this series as dead even. How can you not?
Yeah. And you talked about those shots on goal. Think about this. Last night, in the second and third periods, the shot attempts were 68-17. Igor Shesterkin, the Rangers goaltender, I mean, he's under siege the entire game. You know,
he is.
Reinhart, if you look at the goal that he scored, it was a power play goal. So the Rangers did a bad job right there in the first minute taking a penalty. But he scored from the slot, which is exactly where Vincent Trocek scored the Rangers' first goal. So the Panthers in overtime, they had to get that game last night. Yes, you can come back from 3-1 down in hockey. I get it. But to lose 3 overtime games, what would that do for you mentally? I think, of course it would be. That's why I think the way, and Florida is a cocky team. They believe they should have already swept this series. They're going to have to go on the road. They're either going to have to win a game 5 or a game 7 at Madison Square Garden. They're capable of it. What would worry me about the Rangers is all the shot attempts. I mean, at some point, their defense is going to break.
By the way, Frank, when you have that kind of penalty on a breakaway, I'm sorry. To me, that should have been a penalty shot.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm screaming penalty shot in live time. Like, wait a minute. Why? And okay, you get more than one chance on the power play, as it turns out, and they won it with one of those chances. But it seems like penalty shot should have been called. And now to the French Open, where unseeded Naomi Osaka came so close to taking out two-time defending champion and world number 1 Iga Swiatek. Osaka was up 5-2 in the third, serving for the match at 5-3, but lost the point and her serve, and Swiatek took control, winning 5 straight games for a final count of 7-6, 1-6, 7-5. Now, Osaka, people will remember, spent 2023 on maternity leave. So, Frank, after this result, should she feel encouraged or discouraged?
She should be encouraged. Women's tennis should be encouraged. She played really well. And I got a chance to watch this. It was on in the middle of the day. Nothing better than watching a match like this in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. And I'll tell you what, Osaka had a set point in the opening set. She loses that, loses in a tiebreaker, loses the first game of the second set. And, Mike, she rattled off 9 straight games. And this was there for her. She had the match on her racket. Listen, clay court, she's not great on clay. She's never reached the finals of a clay court tournament,
much less
the
third round.
The French Open. And she's playing someone who's won 3 of the last 4. She was absolutely killing the ball. Listen, she's only played in 1 major since going on maternity leave, so maybe the nerves got to her late. But this is a good sign for her. The way that she was hitting the ball, she looked terrific out there today. She really did.
As you said, good sign, not just for her, but for women's tennis in general. I mean, she's my absolute favorite tennis player, male or female side of tournaments. Absolute favorite. Osaka, as we know, with 4 Grand Slam tournament championships, she's a star, a big star. And tennis, all of tennis, needs her back. They seem to have her back. Remember, Swiatek won her last 2 tournaments. She's in Europe dominating people and sort of warming up for a summer run, and she nearly gets taken out. And so I know, you know, somebody with as many great victories, important victories, is not going to say there's some sort of, you know, moral victory in this. There's no way Osaka's going to think that. But when she gets back on the practice court shortly here, it seems like if she's got both the conditioning and sort of the frame of mind, which she admitted publicly she did not have even before the maternity leave, for her to have this could be a great summer. It could be a dramatic summer and an exciting summer. We're talking about a week more of drama in the NBA before we get to the finals. Tennis, all of tennis, as people like Nadal bow out and Federer's gone and Joker, who knows, Naomi Osaka can carry a big load. We've seen her do it.
You know, Osaka had not won a major since the 21 Australian Open. You watch her today, and you're thinking, you know what? She's got some majors left in her. And the interesting story, I know you love that story with her and Swiatek, when she talked her out of retirement. Swiatek was going to go to college, and she said, don't do that. And here she is, a four-time major winner, and the odds-on favorite, obviously, to win yet another French.
Osaka not scared of
not at all.
her peers. Let's take a break. But coming up, Major League Baseball makes a big change to its record book.
And what's the word for tonight's Game 4 for Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers?
That's going to be worth watching. That's must-see.
Yep.
Game 4 must-see.
White.
Time to fill in some blanks with Fill In Frank. What's first?
It's blank that MLB added Negro League statistics to its record book.
Frank, I got a very simple word. It's equal. Major League Baseball was segregated for forever, for like more than 80 years of its history.
Until 47.
And it only considered the contributions, records included, of white players. And so now it's adding a league that was segregated, and it is adding the records, the participation, the inclusion of important stars. I mean, even guys like Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, Ernie Banks, they played in the Negro Leagues. Even they're in the Hall of Fame based on their contributions to Major League Baseball. But now people will get to know more about the contributions and records of guys including Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, Buck Leonard, Cool Papa Bell, my favorite nickname of all time, Oscar Charleston, Martin Diego, Rube Foster. You can learn about all of it. Babe Ruth played against these guys. He barnstormed. There were white stars. Major League Baseball didn't include them, but it doesn't mean their peers, the Negro Leaguers' peers, didn't understand they were great players, because they would go play where they could legally against them in Cuba and other Mexico in the offseason. So great, but it's equal. That's the important thing.
You know what? I'll take what you said, and I'll say that it's overdue then. I think that's one way to look at it. And what's amazing is, I'll give you one player in particular, and you mentioned Josh Gibson, who, has the highest batting average now, not just for a single season, but for a career. And now what you always love to do with baseball is to compare players and greatest of all time. It used to be, is he the greatest catcher of all time? Now you throw him into that conversation about greatest players of all time.
Great
and now
point.
You really have some spice. You have some statistics to back it up. Pretty interesting for Josh Gibson, a local Pittsburgh
let me mention
guy.
this real quickly. My parents, living on the south side of Chicago, went to Comiskey Park in the 1940s to see Negro League baseball, okay? So people can think of this as, it's 8 million years ago. It's a long time ago, but not so long ago that those contributions shouldn't be valued. And Major League Baseball has done that, so standing ovation for the committee or committees that figured out how to do it.
Well said.
What's next?
Tonight's Game 4 is blank for the Oilers.
Wow, I got must-have, Frank. And I know at 2-1, you can say, hold on. Plenty of teams have come back from 3-1 in the NHL. Teams have come back from 3-0 in the NHL. I mean, it's not like the NBA, but this is a tough series that Edmonton's been involved with. And a lot of folks thought Dallas was going to be the favorite, should be the favorite, and think Dallas is the better team in this series. Again, how much time do you have for Connor McDavid and that crew, but specifically McDavid, if he's the best player in the game? How much time do you have to cash in and get this close to the Stanley Cup final and win one? Must have for Edmonton tonight.
I'm going with potentially goodbye, because Michael Wilbon's dream has been to get a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't think it's going to happen. Dallas is the best team. They got the great goaltender in Jake Ottinger. Their defense is tremendous. Edmonton blew their chance. They scored the 2 quick goals in Game 3. Next thing you know, they're losing. I get it. They tied it up. They end up losing 5-3. So Dallas is just too good, especially defensively. And you mentioned that team. They got talented players. And this summer, Leon Draisaitl, he could get an extension. If that doesn't happen, maybe at next year's trade deadline, he could be on the move. So a lot at stake for Edmonton. I'm just not seeing it. I think Dallas is just too good. They're the best team in hockey, with all due respect to both Florida and the Rangers.
Yeah, but I can root for the greatest player. I can root to see him That's the thing that has been, largely missing is springtime being able to see Connor McDavid. He's had a couple of goals in these playoffs, Frank, in which just his speed and power are on display, and it's flashes. We haven't seen it enough, so I'd like to see it on the biggest stage. I'd like to see it one more round later, but he better flash it tonight.
Yep.
That's the final word. We're taking one last break, but still to come. Cubs rookie Ben Brown is denied the chance to finish a no-no.
And Bronny James decides whether to stay in the NBA draft. There you go.
Rooting for Canada tonight.
I know you are. Just like I rooted for Minnesota last night. Keep this going.
Time to get happy, people. Happy 23rd birthday, Puka Nacua. The Rams receiver had a rookie season for the ages. 105 receptions, just under 1,500 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He was selected for the Pro Bowl and made second-team All-NFL. Nacua was originally slated to support Cooper Kupp, but when Kupp was injured to start the season, Nacua stepped right in and kept it going even when Kupp returned. The Rams drafted Nacua in the 5th round out of Brigham Young, but he started his collegiate career in Washington, and Husky star Rome Odunze recently told Ryan Clark everyone knew Nacua was him, even back then.
What a year he had. 9th overall in receptions, 4th in receiving yards. And I try to tell you all the time, Mike, because I know you're a big NFL draft head. You can find good players. It's not just about the first round. Here's a guy that was taken in the 5th round. Think about that, the year that he had. Pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm hoping Odunze is him. That's just me. A not-so-happy anniversary, Jose Canseco. On this day 31 years ago, the Rangers right fielder asked to pitch the 8th inning during a blowout loss to the Red Sox. Manager Kevin Kennedy led him, and Canseco gave up 3 runs on 2 hits and 3 walks. More importantly, he injured his throwing arm in the process. Canseco missed 11 days and played another 15 games, before having Tommy John surgery and missing the rest of the season. But this wasn't the biggest embarrassment of Canseco's season. Just 3 days before taking the mound, he misplayed a fly ball which bounced off his head and over the fence, famous video, for a home run. Canseco was also capable of greatness. A 6-time All-Star, the winner of the 1988 AL MVP for the first 40-40 season ever, and the owner of 2 World Series rings.
Yeah, he got one of those with the A's, another one with the Yankees in 2000. I'll tell you what, too, when you watch him pitch, it must all be mechanics, Mike, because he wasn't even throwing that hard, and he messed up his arm. So
mechanics.
It's all about mechanics and spin.
Yeah, it wasn't throwing 100 miles an hour. Happy trails to a potential no-hitter for Cubs rookie Ben Brown. I hate this. The right-hander was spinning a no-no against the Brewers in Milwaukee last night through 7 when he was lifted by that cheesehead Craig Counsell. Brown had thrown 93 pitches, struck out 10, also benefited from Cody Bellinger's leaping snag of Willie Adames' long drive in the final inning, his final inning. After the game, Brown said he understood Counsell's decision to go to the pen. I didn't. Saying, quote, "He's doing it for my career moving forward and what's best for the team," close quote. Cubbies have another rookie starter going tonight. Shota Imanaga takes his 0.8 ERA, 0.84, into Milwaukee on 10 days rest, Frank. His last scheduled start was rained out.
It's amazing, Mike. You never would, 20, 30, forget 40 or 50 years ago, taking a guy out when he has a no-hitter. It seems like it happens now all the time.
All the time, every week.
And now it's not even a big deal anymore.
No.
It's just something that everyone expects. It's hard to believe.
Can you imagine a manager or a pitching coach going to the mound and saying to Bob Gibson or Don Drysdale, exactly. "Let me have the ball"? He'd have let him have this. That's what he'd let him have.
They wouldn't come off the mound, that's for sure.
No errors today, so we go to the big finish. T. Lue agreed to a long-term extension with the Clippers. Not surprising, but Frank, your thoughts?
You know what? He had good leverage. The Laker job was open, and I'll tell you what, Ty Lue got a lot of money. Good for him. He's one of the top coaches in the league.
It is great for him. He deserves it.
Yeah, he does. Prosecutors in Kentucky, they dropped charges against Scottie Scheffler. Your thoughts?
The moment I heard this, Frank, of course, during the tournament, the PGA, I thought this is going to be dropped. And It is. Bronny James will stay in the NBA draft, and big-time shooter Alex Caravan is heading back to UConn. What's the bigger deal?
That's good news for Danny Hurley, but come on, Mike, something must be up with Bronny James. He must have a guarantee from some team. Is it the Lakers? Is it the Phoenix Suns? Rich Paul, Bronny, and LeBron, they know something. That's why he's staying in. The U.S. Women's Open tees off tomorrow. Do you like Nelly Korda's chances?
Yes, you got to like Nelly Korda's chances at old historic Lancaster Country Club. Can't wait to see that. Last one, the Sun beat the Mercury to move to 6-0. The Sun is now 6-0. Impressed?
Mike, what do you have to say about your Mercury? Do you know they were 1 for 27 on threes? Their starters were 0 for 20, and they played right over there in about an hour or so. Your team's not looking too good. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or ESPN app or Apple Podcast. Imanaga tonight, Frank. Watch your Sports Center.
The Mercury, the Suns.
All right, Frank. How much faith do you have in Minnesota forcing a Game 6?
Oh, I got a lot of faith. Let's remember, Mike, right now they're 3-0 in elimination games this spring, and that includes 2 games against the defending champs. One of those, they're down 20 on the road in a Game 7, and they came back and won. So, yes, I believe they could finally win a home game in the Western Conference Finals. I love the way Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns played the other night. They combined for 54 points. They came in averaging a combined 37 points. But for Anthony Edwards, it just wasn't about offense. They put him on Luka Doncic, and with Anthony Edwards as the primary defender, Luka went 5 for 15. So a couple of adjustments Minnesota made were good. I think the crowd tomorrow night is going to be wild, but it's more about the way that they played. Defensively, they play great defense everywhere. That gives me a lot of faith. They can force the series back to Dallas.
Yeah, Frank, I agree with you. Even though, look, if you say to me, who's going to win the series? Pick one right now, stay with it. I'm going to still say Dallas, okay? I am. But we saw what Minnesota was able to do in Game 6 and 7 against the defending champs, Denver, in the previous round. And you know what, Frank? You know this. We've been around locker rooms a bit in our lives. You can feel the teams that sort of have emotional swings. And sometimes those swings can hurt you, and sometimes they can help you. And seeing Minnesota's personality come through last night, both during the game, and it really shows up in Ant-Man more than anybody else because they follow him. And Karl Anthony
expansion of power conferences, including the